Hi lads, coming up on this podcast is Christy Moore. Could you believe that? We had Christy Moore in the studio and we covered a lot of things, addiction recovery, his musical influences. He sang the new song, he sang about Cork Live at the Marquee and a few other classics as well. And we even got to sing with him, Timmy.
Yeah, inspirational man. He's been one of my music idols for a long, long time. And I sang Black is the Colour, which was one of the biggest moments of my life, really. You know, to be able to sing with Christy Moore, but you will enjoy this podcast immensely, most definitely.
Yeah, and if you want to support us, you can subscribe to our Patreon, which helps pay the rent and cover the production costs and everything else that goes with it. We never promote it, but we're going to try our best going forward. So if you can spare us the price of a cup of coffee, as other people say, it'd be much appreciated.
Yeah.
And if you watch this on YouTube, it'd be great if you subscribed to the channel and liked the video. It'll cost you nothing, but it will mean a lot to us. So with that, I hope you enjoy the podcast and we see you all next week. Before we get into it there, we just want to remind people that we're supported through Danny Donovan at quickminutes.com.
Yeah, Danny's a very good friend of both myself and James. He comes from the north side as well, and he grew up locally, and he's been a massive supporter of the podcast and both myself and James since we actually began. And he has his own company called Quick Minutes now, and
quickminutes.com is a meeting management application for semi-formal and formal meetings. And look, if you want to know more about that, quickminutes.com, and supporting Danny's supporting us. So if you're interested in that, check them out and enjoy the rest of the podcast. Hello everybody, welcome back to the Norries podcast. I'm your host James, and I'm joined as always by my good friend Timmy Long.
Hi everyone.
Sean is on the production. How are you, Sean?
Not too bad, how are you getting on?
Mick Devine, how are you, boy?
Great, thank you.
Mick is in the audience, and we've got Christy Moore in the studio with us. How are you, Christy?
Great to be here.
Long time coming, isn't it?
Yeah. I've been looking at you for nearly 3 years now. I feel I know you.
How did you come across us in the first place?
I can't remember. I just started looking at you, and whatever it was, like from day one, I just liked what was going on down here, and some of the was John Lonergan, was that early?
He was, yeah. That was about the second or third.
John might have been the first one I saw, because I met him in Portlaoise and in Mountjoy. He was a great governor.
Yeah. Nice fella indeed.
Yeah.
And he came down to, like, the early podcast was in Timmy's shed.
Yeah.
And John came down to us, to Churchfield, in the north side, not a bother to him. He walked through the council estate with his head held high, and one of the lads that would have been in Mountjoy years ago said, "You should have asked John, did he know me?" But he was saying the reason John can walk through a housing estate in the north is because he treated people well, and nobody can ever say anything to him.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
So that was, I'd say, back in the early days, wasn't it?
Was it May?
He had a mad accent, who went in?
2020?
Well, that's when I started. After that, I was kind of, I'd say the majority of them since then,
Because it was during COVID as well, we started up, so there would have been a lot of time at home.
Yeah.
A lot of your gigs might have been cancelled as well.
Oh, everything went, everything went for everybody.
Yeah.
But it was, it's strange. It's strange now, though. It's kind of thinking back. There's an awful lot of blanks. I can't really get my head around what was happening, or, I don't know how you feel about that. But
Yeah, I could definitely agree with it. Right, I was finishing my last year in college at that time, and I was stressed out of my mind because I was getting services in the college to help me with different learning differences that I had. And then I went home in March, and it was very, very difficult. But I also remember spending time with my wife and kids that I never ever spent, and I got to know my family for the first really and a really in-depth level, and I thought it was fantastic. But it was like every single day, if there was ever Groundhog Day, every single day was the same.
Yeah.
Same time we went for the same walk. And I think it was great for families as well, because they spent so much time together because everybody was at home.
Yeah.
There was a few divorces as well came out of it, I'd say.
There was an awful lot, there was positives for some people. I mean, some people suffered terrible, and there was terrible negatives. But there were, every now and then, like that. There were things about it that we experienced, things that we wouldn't have done without it.
Did you write your album, Jordan? Your new album during COVID?
I certainly got it together. I'm not really as much a writer as I am a singer. I don't write that many songs.
Okay.
But people
request you to sing their songs all the time?
People send me songs all the time.
Okay.
And every now and then a good one comes along,
Okay.
So it's a great, like that last album, I think there's only 2 of them are my own. There's one by Ricky Lynch from Cork, of course, and
Yeah.
there's probably one by John Spillane. I'm always looking. John Spillane sends me songs all the time.
Does he?
And, you know, I love listening to John Spillane.
But will we go back to where you're from originally? I know you're a Kildare man, but where you're from originally, and how many brothers and sisters have you got?
I'm from Moorfield, Newbridge, County Kildare. I was born in 1945, the 7th of May 1945. I'm the eldest of 6. I have 3 sisters, Eilish, Anne, Terry, then 2 brothers, Andy and Barry, also known as Luca. And I'm the eldest of 6.
Okay, and what way was school for you?
I enjoyed all. Well, I can still remember going to infants. I didn't like that. But after that, I didn't like it because I remember the nun, she'd punish you by making you sit in with the girls. That was the punishment.
Humiliate you.
You'd be mortified, you know. But then in primary grand, I got into the football and I got into the choir and the singing. And then I was lucky, I went to secondary school in the Dominican College in Newbridge, and I loved it. I loved secondary school, I have to say. A lot of fellas I was in school with hated it, but I liked it. I loved all the sport and everything that was going on, and the singing as well.
Who's your musical influences from back in those days?
My mother was the chief influence. My mammy got us all singing. She loved to sing herself, and she was happiest when there was a sing-song going on in the house. All of us sing. My sister Anne, yesterday, she got her first guitar when she was 67, and 6 years later she released her 3rd album yesterday.
What?
Luca gave her a guitar, and she started playing, and she's flying it now.
Amazing, isn't it?
So
What's
we
the
all,
name for latest album? Do you
it's
know?
called The Golden Thread.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to hear Christy's sister singing,
Anne Ryn is her name.
Anne.
Ryn, and her new album is called The Golden Thread, and it's lovely. It's all about her family.
Lovely. Yeah, she good singer, Christy.
She's a lovely singer, yeah, she's lovely. And, you know...
Musical family, hadn't she grown up as well?
Yeah, well, as I said, Mammy she was a great songstress, you know. She used to sing in the church, and she used to sing the kind of solo soprano at Mass. But when she's singing at home, with more ballads.
Yeah.
But also bits of music hall, and she just loved the sing-song, you know.
Did any of you play instruments back then?
We all played the piano growing up. She taught us all how to tinkle on the piano.
I'd love to be able to play the piano. I often dreamt of playing the piano at home. You know, I was thinking of even getting a little keyboard for myself.
Well, you should.
Yeah.
You should, because...
I'm always, without me even knowing, I'm always tapping with the fingers.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, get yourself a keyboard and get somebody local to give you a few lessons to get you started. Because it's very easy to get going on the piano. Yeah. You know, it's very easy to kind of pick out a few notes, you know. Bowron is also very easy.
I actually have a Bowron at home inside the shed. I made it actually in the Midlands as well.
Did you?
Yeah, great Bowron, and
Wow.
be looking at it. I don't know how to play it.
Yeah.
But it's a great little bit of furniture in the house. It's beautiful.
Okay.
I put my family crest in it now as well, and
What is it about the Bowron when you play it that it gives you hairs in the back of your neck? It's kind of the tribal sound will really get you going, don't it?
Yeah, there's something ancient in the sound of the Bowron.
Yeah.
There really is, you know. It's I love the old Bowron. I love whacking the Bowron. And it was Donald Lunny, you asked me what musical influences.
Yeah.
After my mother, the next great influence in my life was Donald Lunny. He was a neighbour, a couple of years younger than me, but we lived fairly close together. And when Don was about 14, he was playing in a band in Newbridge. And then when the Clancy's got going, he knew how to play the Clancy Brothers songs. And I got a few chords off him. And then eventually, of course, we formed Planksty together.
Yeah.
You know, many years later.
Yeah, a fabulous group. Do you know, when you finished school, did you go working, or when did the music become your job?
After I left, I did my leaving, and then I worked in a bank for 3 years. But all the time I wanted music. But like when I was a young lad, I used to go to England for the summer. When I was 16, 17 and 18, I used to go to England working. Then I worked in the bank for 3 years, and then there was a big long bank strike in 1966. And it went on, I think, for about 5 months. And when the strike ended, I didn't come back. I stayed over. And at that stage, I was playing kind of in pubs in London. And then I heard about this folk scene. I heard about these folk clubs. and I started going around the folk clubs and eventually got started. 1966, I got my first folk club gig, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Would you have been bumping into the likes of the Dubliners and that on the circuit?
Later on, like when the Dubliners were going first, I would have been in the audience looking at them in awe.
Yeah.
And I remember the first night they did a television programme in Salford, the two brewers in Salford. And I'll always remember I was in the queue to go in and hear them, and Luke Kelly saw me and come over and started talking to me, and he brought me into the concert. I ended up staying in his room that night in a hotel, first time I'd ever stayed in a hotel. And I woke up the next morning and he was gone, and there was a $5 in my guitar case.
Fair play to him.
Fair play to him.
Fair play.
That was Luke, though.
Yeah.
He was a very, very generous man.
Is he?
Yeah. And a great singer and a great man.
Yeah. I know, it's just a legendary time in Irish, folk song history, isn't it? At that time, and kind of something that you'd miss today in today's culture. It's like a gone era, and I don't know, do the young people pick it up as much, with the access to social media and MTV and all these things, But like around that time as well, like you're in recovery and you're open about that as well.
Yeah.
Like, why is there a drinking scene go hand in hand with that for a lot of musicians? Like, is it on the time on the road takes its toll, or like what's the link, do you think?
Well, I suppose when the ballad scenes, it used to be called the ballad scene.
Yeah.
The folk scene in Ireland, the revival. The Clancy started it. Dubliners were kind of getting going around the same time. It all took place in pubs, ballad lounges. Every town in Ireland had at least one ballad lounge. And that's where the gigs were, in the ballad lounges. And I suppose the drink was available, and it was very nice. And then there was the flakiols. I mean, the old flakio culture was very different to the flakiols now. Like the old flakio culture, they were kind of chaotic and they were mad, but they just had great times.
Do you know the first time you actually did start drinking, Christy? Was it something that took off kind of rapidly, or was it something that kind of just went into it slowly, kind of got turned into an issue for you in time?
Well, I kind of started tasting them when I was very young, Timmy.
Yeah.
And I can always remember, like there was never any drinking much in the house. Remember after one Christmas, remember Baby Sham? There was a couple of bottles, small bottles of Baby Sham left, and I remember taking them up to the top of the house and drinking them, and I liked it. And then I used to stay with my granny a lot, and she had a bottle of sherry, and I used to take little drops out of the sherry. Yeah. But I got drinking when I was in my early teens, 14, 15. And like my father died when I was 11, and I used to love going down the town, meeting the men who talked about him.
Yeah.
You know.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can relate to that myself. I used to go into the pubs with all the men from the building site at the age of 15, and I used to love it, the feeling I used to get, and they'd all be men now in their 30s and 40s, all big concrete men, and I'd be sitting in and I'd have the smile be from ear to ear.
And then even when they talk to you, you'd feel, wow.
It's a great feeling, isn't it? To be with the older fellas, you feel like that. There's a bit of respect here, and you feel like you fit in as well. But you don't understand the culture of drink at that age. You just want to fit in somewhere. It's a great feeling in one sense, but on the other side, then it's like you're walking into somewhere where it's that drinking is just the normal kind of culture, and this is what they do.
Do you know, we were on about like the drinking scene and the ballad scene and stuff like that. Do you know, I heard Adam Clayton from U2 being interviewed, I think it was by Tommy Tiernan, and Adam was talking about how he's drinking, and when it got out of hand for him, he was missing gigs and he was getting paralytic and he couldn't go on stage. Did it ever get a bad few where you were letting people down for gigs, or were you always managing it?
No, I would have a certain amount of shame around certain things that I did, of not turning up for gigs and just going on the tear and not being able to tear myself away. I could be in Galway on Thursday night and I'd miss the Friday night gig and I'd miss the Saturday night gig, and I'd be a bit ashamed of that. And then also there were times, I think, when I went on stage very drunk, both in Planksty and solo. And sometimes people come up with old recordings of gigs from years ago, and when I hear them, I'd be embarrassed. Because in some of them I'd be drunk and some of them I'd be stoned.
Yeah.
And it's shameful.
The first gig I was ever at in my life was, I was only a child, Shane McGowan and the Popes, do you remember them back in the day?
Yeah.
And Shane was sitting in a wheelchair on the stage, drinking. He'd have half the pint would be gone, they'd come out and they'd put another one. The cigarette would only be half. It was like they just filled him. I felt he was being exploited even as a child, that they were just filling him, give it to him until he get through the gig, and then what at the cost to him then, you know?
Yeah.
But I think that
The songs he wrote, though.
amazing.
His lyrics.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
The Old Man Drag always kind of hits a bit hard.
Yeah. The Brown Eyes.
Yeah.
But I suppose only the alcoholic or the addict would understand what actually drives you into becoming so kind of caught up in drinking drugs and missing gigs. Like I would have missed weddings, birthday parties. You know, if I was drinking, I probably would have missed my own wedding. You know, but I understand completely what it is to kind of do that. You know, and just miss things, and I can relate to the shame as well, because I often think back, or I might see a photograph as well at home. My wife might produce it, like towards the end. My wife was just coming out. She wasn't even drinking. She was the babysitter for the night, and towards the end of the night, then I'd probably go missing and leave her wherever she was. But that's what every alcoholic or addict, they carry that with them in their life, is the stuff that they've done. And when they're reminded through a picture or a story, there's a trigger.
It comes back. Everything comes back.
Brings it all back up, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And that's part of, I suppose that's part of, is it karma? I don't know. Do we carry these? But that's what keeps us sober too, Christy.
Yeah.
You know, them feelings.
If you get through it.
Yes.
If you get through it. And it's like, you know, the likes of Jim Morrison and other people that have been through dark places, and Shane, but they write the most amazing songs then.
Yeah.
You know, so like there's something something good comes out of it, and if you can survive it, like we're lucky to have come through it now ourselves, and we can pass on the learning and the wisdom to the next generation as well.
The one thing I always find with when those feelings of shame come in, what always kicks in then is gratitude.
Yeah.
To be out of it.
Yeah.
And to be still here, and to look back on it, and just to give thanks that I'm no longer in that dark place. You know.
How difficult was it to get the recovery? Because I know for me it was probably the hardest thing. Like, I grieve for many loved ones in my life, and for me to give up drinking drugs, like, was probably the most difficult thing I had ever to do in my life. How difficult was it to initially give it up the first time, or was it on a number of occasions that did it take a number of treatment centres or occasions or ultimatums from the family or the wife or whatever?
I tried everything. I tried all kinds of things, and I mean a few different rock bottoms, but I think my main rock bottom was I had a heart attack, and I was in the intensive care, and I said to myself, if I get out of here, bitches, I'll never drink again. And I got out of there and went at it, and that's when I realised I was beaten. When the heart attack wouldn't stop me. And it was somebody very close to me suggested I seek help, and took me to where I got that help, and I haven't lifted a drink or a drug since. That's 34 years ago.
And you need that awareness. It's like you were sitting in the bar and someone said, I'm beaten here. Like, I was the same. I was on the floor inside in the cell crying. You know, I knew I was beaten. I was just after getting myself into the height of it. And numerous things before that. Like, I could have lost my life a few times before that. Nothing ever my family, nothing ever stopped me. But this time it was just like, it's like all those times together, and this occasion as well, they came together, and it's like...
I actually find it quite disturbing when you talk about that.
Yeah, it's
I try and imagine being in a cell.
Yeah.
Bad enough to be at home in the horrors, or to be anywhere, but to be in a locked cell in the horrors.
But I needed to be there that night.
Yeah.
Trust me, you know, because at that stage of my life, it was like everything came down crumbling around me. The loneliness, all these different things, everything had to happen. And I suppose it was that feeling, Christy, inside in that cell that night will never leave me, you know, and it'll stay with me forever, because that's what keeps me sober today.
But
It keeps me sober.
Aren't we lucky, really, as well? When I hear your experience and Timmy's experience, and like in spite of the heart attack, you still went at it. And towards the end of my using, there was overdoses, were very close calls, and that didn't stop me. It was only when the guard showed me a bit of kindness and made me aware that this is the worst they've ever seen me, that I thought to myself, if the guards here are showing me kindness, I must be fucked altogether. And that was kind of my, I suppose, it wasn't my rock bottom, because I wasn't the rock bottom, but it was my turning point, really, where I just, something clicked to me.
Did you ever get a chance to share with the guard after that?
No,
guard?
but I'd love to if you ever listened.
Yeah.
He might listen to this now because you're on. He might, you know, but I'd love to. But why, like, are we lucky that the right person said the right thing to us at the right time? And have you any opinions or insights as to why we got it and why some people don't?
I suppose for me, I was just very, very fortunate in that there's somebody very close to me who knew about recovery, who was in recovery, and saw in me what I couldn't see in myself. And even when he gently said it to me a few times, I got angry at him. And more told him to fuck off. What would you know about drinking?
Yeah.
You know, so that was my first response. But afterwards, when I was in trouble, I remembered and I reached out to him. And thankfully, so everybody's different.
Yeah.
You know, I think everybody has a different thing, James, a different way into recovery. You know?
And it shows as well, like, even with your experience, like, people can be at their lowest, but they can always turn it around.
Yeah.
I don't know if they, if they just get a bit of help at the right time, there's hope for everybody.
Yeah.
And we've seen some hope this case,
Yeah.
including ourselves.
Yeah.
That have come on. You know, Timmy's brother, he always mentions his brother Tommy.
yeah.
Tommy's on the podcast with us next week, but
Yeah.
Tommy was fucking...
Tommy was like, he just fucking straight out. My heart was broken, you know, with this guy. Like, I was a few years in recovery. We were in prison together for years, you know, and I had to kind of, and for some reason I couldn't see him getting it, and we were trying everything. Then he was homeless and stuff, and he would have been like, his using was really, really bad. It was at the stage like that. We thought, I was just waiting for a knock on my door, I got a phone call, and you'd be praying constantly, and we managed to get him into treatment.
Oh, great.
You know, we managed to get him into treatment. He went on his detox, and he'll tell his own story when he comes down. But after me seeing this young fella getting it, anybody can get this, right? They just need to. They need to go through pain first, Christy. They need to go through pain and hit a place where it's so lonely that they feel the pain so badly, and just something happens in here. They get this glimpse of awareness where some voice inside their head says, I can't do this no more. And that's what happened to me. I can't do this no more.
Yeah.
I can't. My two kids are at home. My wife's at home. I'm not left into the house. I'm going to prison for years. You know, nobody will answer their phone because it might carry on their own drink and drugs. And that was it. Walking the streets then late at night crying, you know, because you're so lonely, and you just feel like nobody wants you. And that's what you need to feel. You know, people always ask me in messages, their son, their daughter, their husband, their wife, they're struggling with addiction.
Yeah.
What can they do? Like, in my I don't know what to say to you. Like, try to get them to a doctor or a treatment centre, but when that person, when that person is ready, for recovery, they'll be ready.
Yeah, it's a terrible situation when somebody's asking you, what will I do, and you do feel powerless.
Yeah.
And I suppose the cop-out, but it's not really a cop-out, it's Al-Anon.
Yeah.
You know, that is great for some people.
And it does help as well.
Al-Anon, you know. Or,
Do you know when you were in early recovery, but your the music scene and the ballad scene was all involved around drinking and stuff like that? How did you manage yourself in that?
I got great help. I got great advice, you know, of things to do. I met men who were around a long time. I got great support. Every now and then some of them would even come to a gig, and they might come into the dressing room beforehand and we'd have an old chat, and they told me about escape routes and things to avoid.
Good to have an exit strategy.
Oh, Jesus, yeah. Exit strategies saved me many a time. And then I realised after a while, you know, because one thing used to always get me, say you're with a group afterwards and there's a bit of a lock-in, and how am I going to get out of here, you know? what'll they think of me if I leave? And then I began to realise they'd be fucking glad to see the back of me. Because they fucker over there drinking minerals. I wish you'd go away and let's get some
Old dry balls.
I felt the exact same way, but nowadays I don't say nothing to anybody. I just
Gone.
go for the door and then gone when I feel it's
Yeah.
time to move.
I
you
used to
know?
say I'm going to the toilet.
Yeah,
Come back.
that's
you know.
like
I wouldn't miss you.
sure, they're doing their thing, like we were doing our thing. Sure, I
Exactly.
never even noticed. I didn't even know who was in my company when I was out there drinking.
I know.
You know, so
You'd make
like,
sure you were the fella that had a few bottles.
Oh yeah, you know, but listen, there were good times. You know, there were good times at the beginning, but like every alcoholic, the good times do change.
Yeah.
And it does go pear shaped in the end, and it takes over.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
if you can get recovery at all, your potential then can come true in the end, and it's amazing what can happen in your life. And you know, like we can start the podcast, and you can have the career you've had and still have. Like, but there's people have so much potential
Yeah.
that when you put down the drink for a period of time, that you can blossom. Then you know.
Well, I just got a flash there. I'll share it with you.
Go on.
You know, people talk about life beyond your wildest dreams.
Yeah.
And some people think that's a terrible cliche and that it's corny. But I realised I was about 2 years in recovery. I was in Dingle Bay at 6 o'clock in the morning with my two sons, and Fungi came up with a salmon in his mouth to show it to us.
no way.
And I'm out in the bay in a wetsuit, isn't it?
Yeah.
And with two sons, and they're only kids at the time. And I said, this is a life beyond my wildest dreams. And what a magical moment that was. you
That
know.
memory wouldn't exist if you were on the drink.
Absolutely.
But it's the actually be able to appreciate it because you're actually aware there's nothing in control of your head. Like when we're drinking, the only thoughts we have is drink,
Yeah.
more drink. Where am I going to get more drink? But when you're in recovery, you can actually see beauty for what it is. You can see the ocean for what it is, the trees, the leaves. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what, like, if anybody's ever asking me, you know, how am I ever going to enjoy myself again if I go up to drink?
Oh, it's
You see, it's something you learn. You know, beauty will start coming into your life that you never, ever, ever knew. Like,
peace of mind and
Yeah.
I remember when I was drinking and drugging, and say, for example, I went to the walk, and I was next to a fellow who wasn't drinking, normal chap or whatever. He turned around and said, "Jesus, isn't this beautiful?" I'd say, "Yeah, it's grand, it's beautiful," you know, but I wasn't really saying, I
Yeah.
wasn't telling the truth.
Yeah.
But today, when I see something that's beautiful, like
Yeah.
I'd say it's absolutely beautiful because I can appreciate it, you know.
You have a fierce affinity with Cork. You have a fierce connection with Cork. You have a lot of Cork songs or songs by Cork artists. Like, what's your first Cork memory, or what's the first Cork gig you did? Or
oh god, the first gig I did in Cork was with Planksty in the City Hall in 1972, and a lot of us think that was the night that Planksty took off. We were playing support to Donovan, and we just took off that night.
Yeah.
But then I came back. That would have been 72. 1978, I was solo again, and the late Kenny Lee gave me my first solo gig in Cork. And that was the start of it. And then I started connecting with people. There's a great guitar player in Ballyfahan called Naoise Comerford. And I did a bit of playing with Naoise Comerford and Jimmy Crowley. And then I met Declan Sinnott and, you know, John Spillane and Ricky Lynch. And the great songs came my way from Cork, you know. I first heard Jimmy McCarthy in 1979 in the meeting place in Dublin. He was in a band called Southpaw. And that's the first time I heard him singing Ride On. And a couple of years later, I asked him, would it be okay for me to sing Ride On? And then all his other songs, The Contender, Bright Blue Rose, Missing You. Then John Spillane comes in the scene, and it's John's songs. I think John is the greatest songwriter of my lifetime.
really,
Yeah, of the songs I've encountered, John has such beauty in a song like Gurta Toggart, and
That's a beautiful song. You sang that at the Opera House.
it's
I was
just
up-
a gorgeous song.
I actually started getting very emotional listening to that song because it was bringing him back into his childhood, and he was talking about how it was in the countryside.
it sounded lovely too. Where he grew up.
Beautiful, yeah.
The place is called Gurta Toggart, and I had the privilege of visiting his Auntie Mary's farm out near Bantry, and he took me around all the places that are mentioned in the song. But now when I sing the song, I don't think of Gurta Toggart. I think of my own father's home place.
Lovely.
All the fields and the haggard and the hay shed and the bog and you know. So John is beautiful.
He is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When did you get the idea to? So you wrote a song about your connection to Cork and why you like Cork. When did the idea for that song come?
Myself and Mick were driving down. I've played the Marquee every year since it started. I think 17 years. And we're driving down this year. I said, "Jeez, Mick, it'd be great to write an old song about the Marquee." And I started writing it on the way down. And I thought I'd do it that night, but I did it at the sound check, and it was terrible.
So you wrote it within the car driving the way down?
I started it.
Oh, yeah.
And then when I was doing the gig in the Opera House for Don and the Cork Life Centre, I said, "Jeez, I'll have to have a go at this song."
Yeah.
So I spent a few weeks at it, and I did it that night, and I haven't done it since, but I've been working on it. That night was great.
Yeah,
Want to give it a blast now?
Yeah, it was through your podcast that I met Don. You know?
Yeah, actually, do you want to tell us the story? Sing the song first, and we'll tell the dance story afterwards, the Portlaoise connection.
Saturday night, packed in ties all together in the big Marquee. The Cork Examiner says to me, "Why do you keep coming back year after year?" The answer's plain and simple, Mick, the reason's very clear. It's the reels in Ringaskiddy and the jigs in Hallboline. Ricky Lynch in the corner house, he's like a vintage wine. Oh, come on, Christy. Smarten up there. He's like a vintage wine. It's the Kraken Shark in Ireland and the Hake in Union Hall and the turbot caught upon Cape Clear. You can eat the bones and all. On the banks, the beautiful banks on the banks of the River Lee. Saturday night we're packed in ties all together in the big Marquee. Puccini's in the Opera House, Karl Marx in the Conley Hall, Joe Max in the Arcadia, the two Norries are on the ball. Maggie Barry's on the Coal Kid, Jimmy Crowley's on the Rantantan, sound as a bell, Hank Waddell and the Maestro John Spillane. Here's Katrina Toomey, she's coming up the mall to cook the penny dinner, to feed the great and small, and there goes Don O'Leary on the road to Sunday's Well, up to the Cork Life Centre for to ring the morning bell. On the banks, the beautiful banks on the banks of the River Lee. Saturday night we're packed in ties all together in the big Marquee. I took a wrong turn at Dunkettle, upon my soul, down the Jack Lynch tunnel, woke up in the Metropole, and all along McCurtain Street till I came to Patrick's Hill. Big Noel said, "Keep coming back, and by God I surely will." Back to the English market, back to that scene where a well-known Cork fishmonger met Her Majesty the Queen. He brought the cockles and the mussels, caviar and lobster tail. The periwinkle drove the poor old Queen completely off the rails. On the banks, the beautiful banks on the banks of the River Lee. Saturday night we're packed in ties all together in the big Marquee. Oh, the lonely woods of Upton, the boys of Fairhill, the piper of Crossbarry, I hear him still. I see the blood and bandage when I hear the rebels sing. I'm going to kiss that Blarney Stone when the bells of Shandon ring. On the banks, the beautiful banks on the banks of the River Lee. Saturday night we're packed in ties all together on the big Marquee.
Very good, very good. It's nice and catchy as well, isn't it?
I faltered there in the middle. I drew a blank.
Not about it. You held on to it well.
But no, it's I was just thinking, like 3 or 4 of the people, apart from the two of you, people mentioned in the song, I encountered Katrina Toomey through the podcast.
Yeah.
and Don.
Actually, the dance story. So you rang me a few months ago. You were writing this song.
That's your best song, anyway, Christy.
I know, yeah. Listen, and what an honour to be in it as well.
Yeah,
But you
thank
rang
you.
me a few months ago. You were writing the song and you wanted to verify some details with Dan.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that interaction you had with Dan way back when?
I met Don in, I suppose, it was the 70s or the 80s he was in Portlaoise.
The 80s, I'd say.
In the 80s. I was in doing a concert. I did 5 concerts in Portlaoise over a period of 3
Portlaoise
days.
prison now for the people that don't know.
Portlaoise prison, lads and lasses. And I think one of the best gigs I ever did in my life, Mick was at it as well, was in the Republican wing of Portlaoise prison. And it was an amazing experience, you know, because the prison officers brought me to the door and handed me over to the Republican prisoners. The prison officers didn't go in on the wing. And it was just a very emotional and amazing concert. But one thing was very funny about it. There was maybe about 120 men in the room, but there was a little cage over in the corner and there was 3 prison officers in it. Came in to hear the gig. But they were in the cage and all the guys are out in the room. And it was fantastic. And I think that was John Lonergan's time as well. Don made contact and asked me would I come in. And John Lonergan said, we'll let him come in, but he'll have to play for all the other prisoners as well, which was fine with me. And I ended up doing
the whole lot.
4 or 5 gigs to cover the different, you know.
And then your next time seeing Dan then was on the podcast with ourselves.
That's the next time I saw him.
And then you did the fundraiser for the Life Centre a few months over that.
That's right, yeah.
A great kind of a chain reaction.
Wasn't it great? Yeah. And what a great night that was. To hear the kids coming out and paying tribute to Don.
I know, it was emotional night.
It was very emotional. Yeah.
And we actually had the girl who was on the stage giving her testimony about John.
Amber.
She was on our podcast as well, Amber. And she's studying psychology in UCC now.
She's a
Isn't
poet.
that just fantastic?
She has a book of poetry as well.
Yeah, they were actually fantastic guests as well. You know, just to get the perspective of the people that are up and the importance of the Cork Life Centre to those people. And it's just one of those places that so many men and women who have children in the city that have issues around mainstream.
Yeah.
They hear of the Cork Life Centre, and there's not enough Cork Life Centres anywhere.
Well, I heard it said that night there should be one in every town in Ireland, you know.
There should be in the cities. There should be more, Christy, because the importance of it, like the children that are going there, well, the teenagers that are going to that place, they get noticed for who they are and what they're about, and where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. We'll work on your strengths, and we can say it's okay if you're weak here, instead of in mainstream it can be it's all one way.
And get lost and ignore.
And if you're having difficulties, we need to start emphasising the importance on children's mental health instead of their education, you know, because it doesn't, the one thing doesn't like the one shoe doesn't fit all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we need to start looking at that, because what we're doing is we're just causing a lot of mental health issues for children who cannot do the mainstream education. You know,
well, I'm looking forward in the morning. Myself and Mick are going to visit the Cork Life Centre.
What fabulous!
And say hello to them, you know, because I certainly took an awful lot away from Cork with me.
Yeah.
That night, you know.
Yeah. You're going to give us another song. Are you going to do a duet with Timmy?
Let's do that.
Jesus, your pressure's on here, no?
No, Timmy.
Pressure's on.
And the words out before.
We have to say this is the first time we played together.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
This could be the next Foster and Allen on the start. Oh, black is the colour of my true love's hair. Her lips are like some roses fair. She has the sweetest smile and the gentlest hands, and I love the ground whereon she stands. In your own time now, to me. I love
the love whereon she stands. I go to the Clyde and I moan and weep for satisfied I never can be. I'm gonna have to get caught up.
Sounds good to me anyway.
Yeah, I'll do my best.
We'll do the
anyhow.
last verse together.
Right, okay.
I go to the Clyde, and I mourn and weep for satisfied I never can be. And then I write her a letter, just a few short lines, and I suffer death 1,000 times. We'll do the chorus now, and everybody out there, wherever you are tonight, join in. Oh,
Black is the color of my true love's hair. Her lips are like
some roses fair. She has the sweetest smile and the gentlest hands, and I love the ground whereon she stands. Yes, I love the ground whereon she stands. Come on to me.
Very good. Well done. Well done.
Thank you. That's probably one of the biggest things in my life. Like,
Oh, that's amazing.
that was the first song I learned on the guitar.
Well, you can buy the chips tonight.
So thank you so much. You know,
You're very welcome, man.
I got a little bit nervous, and the old guest, the words started jumping at me here because I wasn't understanding them. So
That used to happen to me every night.
What's the origin of that song? It's such a beautiful song.
Hamish Imlock was my mentor in Scotland in the 60s. I met Hamish one night, and he took me on the road with him, and he used to get his drinks from and light his cigarettes and change his strings, and he got me started. And Hamish used to sing that song every night, and he gave me that song. I think it's an old Scottish song, you know.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
It's special.
Yeah. You have a few songs as well around travellers and traveller culture.
Yeah.
Like, how would you just meet them on the road when you're gigging, or would they send you songs like other people, or would that be passed on through kind of third parties, or how would you come across those?
Well, I think my interest started off when I was a young lad myself. I heard a man called John Riley up in Boyle in County Roscommon, and John was a tinsmith, a travelling man, and he was an incredible singer. And John could neither read nor write, yet he had this amazing store of songs, and that lit the flame from me. And then in London, I met up with Ewan McCall, who wrote The Travelling People and Go Move Shift, and he wrote a whole series of songs about the plight of the travelling people. And then I met up with Finbar Fury in Scotland, and I met up with Paddy Keenan, I met with Felix Dorn, and you know, I encountered a lot of Scottish travelling people as well. Yeah. Really good singers, Jeannie Robertson and Jimmy McBeath and Davy Robinson, all great singers. Yeah. So that was, I feel very at one with the there's a great, there's a wonderful singer now called Thomas McCarthy. If you ever get a chance to hear him, he's the real deal.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's he from?
He's from Offaly originally, Burr. He grew up in Burr, but I think he spends most of his time over in England now. But he sings in the old travelling traditional style, and he has serious songs.
Yeah, there's a fan of the podcast, and Paddy Quilligan from Limerick, Newcastle West. But he come to our show and Liston Varna, you know. But his daughter Anne-Marie was on the podcast, so he sent us his CD. But I just wanted to give him a shout because he's a beautiful singer himself.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he sent us his CD. But I think it's good the way when you're doing a live gig that you'll mention the traveller culture and you'll acknowledge it because a lot of the time this is speaking about in a negative way.
Oh yeah.
And you really highlight, you know, the value of the culture. You know, and I think that's
the beauty of it, you know, as well. And the way, I mean, John Riley. John was only 47 when he died. We all thought he was nearly 70. The man was bet. He was bet, but he learned all his songs from the fireside, hearing his father, who learned them from his father. And he had songs that nobody else, like the Travellers carried songs that had disappeared into that tradition. Nobody else kept kept them going, you know. Like the Raggle Taggle Gypsy and the Well Below the Valley and Lord Baker and What But the Blood, all these great ballads, you know.
Yeah, actually, the Raggle Taggle Gypsy, when you do that and then you do Tour Them the Law of Liam and the pipes,
Yeah.
what's it like being on stage with Liam when he's on the pipes like that?
That was one of the greatest highlights of my life, was being on stage with Liam O'Flynn.
Yeah.
You know, it was magical. And that's when the crowd used to go mad. That was the start of Planksty. When we go into Tour Them the Love, all the crowd would light up. You
But
know?
there's something about the pipes. This again, it's that tribal thing. The hairs, for me, anyway, I feel the hairs stand up at the back of the neck. You feel like you just feel more Irish or something. When you hear it.
Well, it's unique. The instrument is unique to Ireland.
Yeah.
There's different kinds of pipes all around the world, but none of them are as developed and as beautiful as the Uilleann pipes.
Yeah. Do you know if you could sing with any person, living or dead, who would it be?
My father,
Really?
yeah.
What kind of songs would he sing?
He only had a few songs, but just to meet him.
Yeah.
He used to sing "I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Coconuts," and he used to sing "The Pride of Petravore." 2 or 3 songs, and himself and my mother used to sing the Kerry dances.
Wow.
Oh, the nights of the Kerry dances. If I could, that's what I'd choose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did his dad have a big impact on you? So young.
Well, probably his death did.
Yeah.
I mean, his death impacted on all 6 of us. You know,
It was unexpected, Christy. Was it?
he didn't have a toenail removed, and he died under the anaesthetic. I mean, the 2 young brothers, they really don't remember him.
Yeah.
Like Barry was only 6 months, Andy was 18 months. I think Terry remembers him a bit, but myself, Eilish and Anne have clear memories of him, you know.
Jeez, it must have been very hard on your mother.
Very
Like,
hard
The
on
kids like that, like raw babies.
Yeah. And she
Fair play.
survived.
got us all through it, you know.
But they were back then. The women were they were different.
Yeah.
We all know what that means. You know,
Yeah.
because even being around my grandmother's, you know, when I was a child, like it was like they were made for that time.
Yeah.
You know, they went through so much.
Yeah.
The resilience that those women showed. You know, they never cared about anything else that was going on for them. They just made sure the family was okay, and they ate last if there was anything else to eat. You know.
Yeah.
It was just they were amazing women. You know.
That's a big thing, that what you just said there, you know, they ate last.
They ate
you know.
last. They always ate
Make
last.
sure everybody else was, and then when everything was done, they might sit down and have a bit themselves.
Yeah.
It was, you know,
Tough times.
tough times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I put in a request? So I said to you a while ago, this I wish I was in England, but then you informed me it was the first song you ever wrote,
Yeah.
and you haven't sung it in about 50 years. So if you don't want to sing that, maybe Bees Wing. Excuse me.
Do you mind if I pick the song?
Go for it.
Okay.
Go for it.
This is a new song written by Bryony Brannigan, who sings with a band called A Lazarus Soul. And I heard this song a while ago, and I just had to learn it. Smoking lemon sevens through a broken bottleneck. Smoking lemon sevens through a broken bottleneck. Her pills ground down like powder, till her trumbles got no louder. Then a little infant mumbling for ma to come and help. Passed out down a dark and damp romantic alleyway. A stranger whispered in her ears and carried her away. Nodding to the Revan, top deck of the 67. On the bus down to Kildare, the love affair began. Here's me head, me arse is coming down the Straffan Road. A bag of cans in hand, a red-haired lover by in tow. The local says she's shady, oh, but she was a lady, with a love so fine and genuine that very few could know. Sleeping in a two-man tent down by the Royal Canal. Drinking in the harbour field with all their traveller pals. She'd love a country cottage, but she hadn't got the sausage. Sleeping in a two-man tent down by the Royal Canal. But love won't stop the winter when you're on the bottom rung. The cider got his liver, and the cold it got his lungs. She pretended not to notice with her bandages and poultice. But the cider got his liver, and the cold it took his lungs. They treated him like vagrants, and they said the ward was full. There on the Florida James Connolly Memorial, her prince he slept 1,000 years, she wept a puddle of tears, as she threw his few belongings off the cold Bull Island pier. Walking down the North Strand with no lover boy in tow, back into the city and to the only life she'd know. She needed one to kill the pain, a love like hers can know no shame. Met an old friend down a lonely lane, rekindled the old flame. Smoking lemon sevens through a broken bottleneck. Smoking lemon sevens through a broken bottleneck. Her pills ground down like powder till her trumbles got no louder. Then a little infant whimpering for ma to come and help. A little infant whimpering for ma to come and help. Written by Brian Brannigan of A Lazarus Soul.
Very good, very good. I wonder what became of that woman. You know, when I'm visualising her there now and the experiences she's having. It reminded me of a few girls I know.
Yeah, but do you know what I noticed? You actually embodied the actual story. You know, it was like you were
living it.
You weren't just singing the song.
Well, there's a film flows in my head.
You were actually playing. You were singing it how it actually was happening.
Yeah.
You know, and that was powerful.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes today you just hear songs being sang.
But that man that wrote that song, he's written some other songs that are well worth hearing. You know, I think he's the best.
He's a young man, isn't he?
He could be in late 30s, could be 40. He could be getting on
young,
for 40. Yeah.
I'm 42, so that's
young,
still
young man. Yeah. You don't look a day over 50.
Oh, Jesus. I look younger than James, I was told. Tell you. But yeah, I was actually looking at that earlier on YouTube. I see he was a young man, Lemon Sevens.
Yeah.
Black goatee beard.
That's him,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you've seen the song before?
I was looking at it earlier on.
I remember you sent the song, songs that
James sent it to me, and I was looking. I watched it on the YouTube this morning.
I'd forgotten I told you about it. Okay.
So, like even just to hear you sing it there now differently, and your own words is like it's a story. It's someone's story. It means something. It's not one of these.
Well, you know, when I hear it, it reminds me of some of the old Traveller songs. Yeah. It reminds me a bit of John Riley's song. Yeah. For some, it reminds me of the Well Below the Valley. Yeah. Which is also about a young woman, you know, and the songs carry the history.
They do.
Do you know, if you were to do ultimate Christy Moore greatest hits, what would be your top 5 songs you'd put on it?
Oh God, James.
It'd be very difficult, wouldn't it?
That's a hard one now, you know. I'll have to come back to you on that one. I'll write to you next Christmas.
Send me the CD. I know, but there's so many songs. Do you even know how many songs you've performed or you've published?
I loved the Jack Doyle one, The Contenders, as well as powerful song, Jimmy McCarthy one. Oh my God. I was only telling Mick ago, I bought the Jimmy McCarthy book of songs.
Yeah.
And I was looking, and there's a little storyline to the song as well. And I was listening. It's a powerful song. Like it's like the song you just sang there. His story is in the song, and you're there from the start to the end.
Brings you right in.
Brings you straight through the whole story. And then I started doing a bit of research on Jack Doyle. And reading up on his life.
Did you ever see him on YouTube singing?
What? I did. I actually watched a few of the videos as well, and he was married to one of the most beautiful women in the world as well, who went on to marry Marlon Brando in the end.
Yeah.
And she was stunning, but like...
Jack died in Cove.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But what I was thinking about was like, this is a man from Cove, County Cork, over in Hollywood, get with one of the most beautiful women in the world, and here we are, and you know, I got very sad too, Christy, when I started listening to his story around the alcoholism and where he ended up in the end. You know, but I got sad because I could relate to it, of course, you know, and I got gratitude then, as you said earlier. I got gratitude from it then because of
you've escaped from it.
You know, but a lot of people don't escape for it, you know, and you know, can we sing probably that song for the people who don't escape from it, if you want, or you don't have to sing it. The Contender.
I'll have a go at it. About Jack Doyle, The Contender.
Beautiful.
Oh, when I was young and I was in my day, I could have stole what a woman's heart there was a way. I'd sing and dance into the morning, I'd blaze away until the dawning, long before I was the man you see today. Oh. But there in the mirror on the wall, I see the flame. Sorry, Jimmy McCarthy. I can't remember it, Timmy.
That's fine.
I'll get it. I'll sing it for you in the marquee.
Do please, but that's a powerful song, Christy, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's
it is.
The story.
I'm sorry I couldn't get through it there.
That's fine.
That's
fine. You're not supposed to remember every
You're on
song.
the spot as well, like.
The which?
You're on the spot.
Yeah, I haven't been doing it for the last few years, you know. And if you don't practice them, sometimes, although some of them, you'd never forget them.
Do you know that song though? The story to it, it's just one of those songs that should live on forever, isn't it? You know, because of the power behind it. You know, one man's story from being up here at the pinnacle of his life in Hollywood, such demand for acting, heavyweight boxer, and then ending up in the streets in the park in London.
Buddy Sugrew's in London, you know.
Like, it just shows the actual, like, we know how alcoholism can destroy somebody, and that tells that story step by step down, you know, and and
did you ever see the YouTube, the man and the barman singing Bright Blue Rose? There's a barman up in somewhere in North Cork, and he sings Bright Blue Rose, standing behind the counter, still pulling drink.
No way.
It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Have a look at that.
Powerful singer as well.
Beautiful tenor.
Yeah.
And have a look at it now.
That's absolutely.
And he's singing Bright Blue Rose, and he's still serving drink to people, and doesn't listen.
And that's a hard enough song to sing, because I tried to learn on the guitar as well.
It's the best version of it I ever heard.
Really? Yeah. And I often wondered, and Jimmy McCarthy was asked as well, what does it mean, The Alchemist's Stone? Like, what do these words? And I can't remember his meaning for it, but it was like it just fitted that song. Yeah. And that's all he said. It just fitted that song, you know. And
Jimmy flows deep. Jimmy's waters flow deep.
Yeah. It's like when I was reading up on some of the songs, it was like, where does this man, like, he's a creative human being, like these words, because they're in depth emotion.
Did you ever hear a song, The Mad Lady and Me?
No, I never heard that one.
Never listened to that.
Powerful.
One. And it's about something he witnessed.
Really?
Yeah. This woman goes into the river, and they're there, and some fella was trying to get her back, and another fella says, "Leave her off, she'll drive us all crazy."
Oh, Jesus.
That's in the song.
Yeah. Just, Christy, in order to close us off, have you any words of wisdom or encouragement for anybody that might be struggling and listening and watching this today?
Reach out, seek help. All is not lost. Like, no matter how bad you're feeling today, if you can just reach out and learn that you're not on your own, because we all think we're completely unique in our addictions. We think nobody will ever understand. And if you sit with people in recovery, you'll realise that these people know what's driving me mad. These people understand. And it's such a great revelation to realise that you're not on your own, that you're not alone, you know. So I wish you the very best, those of you who are struggling, and I hope we'll get to meet you someday.
Well said, Christy, well said. Come out. It's been the honour of our lives to meet you in the studio, to sing with you, and you know, you've given us great encouragement over the last 2 or 3 hours, so thank you for that.
Well, keep up the good work,
Yeah.
James and Timmy. I love what you do, and I'm delighted that I find. Like as I said, I felt I knew you, and it's only when I came I realised that we haven't met before.
No,
But I've seen you so frequently over the last 3 years, you know.
Yeah.
So
And you know what? I'm going to finish in this because I think it's important that I do. And James always, I'm going to quote James, right? He was asked once by somebody, what is Christy Moore to Ireland? And James says, well, have a look at Mozart and what he is to Vienna.
Yeah.
Christy Moore is
I
like
did
that to
lecturer
Ireland.
from Austria.
Yeah.
So I was explaining like Christy Moore what you mean to Irish culture,
Yeah.
and it was the equivalent of Mozart to Vienna is what Christy is to Ireland, and that was the best way to put it. And I know you're a modest man, you mightn't accept that, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
well, Mozart had a good few more chords than I have.
But I'll tell you, before we do finish, and this podcast will probably be shown inside in the prisons as well, Crispy. There's so many men inside and women in our prisons, right, that are learning your songs at the moment. Could you just say hi to a few of them? Because your songs, every music room that I've ever went into in any prison, your songs were always the ones that have been sang, you know, and fellas playing on the guitar and they're banging them out, you know, and it made them feel good, you know. So
Actually, remember Paddy Higgins?
Paddy,
I did a podcast with Paddy, beautiful singer, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's
Unbelievable,
great.
And
yeah.
How is he doing?
He's done well by all accounts.
Okay.
He's done well by all accounts. But he had a beautiful song about the yellow birdie. And then when he sang it about his daughter, it was, you know,
Wasn't it great?
yeah, it was really nice. And we got so many people contacting us looking to buy his album. He hasn't got one. But I think that he's onto something there.
Oh, yeah.
He can get his head together when he get out and he have a career ahead of him.
Yeah.
So hi to Paddy and all his family.
yeah.
Oh, you Paddy.
Yeah.
And keep singing, boy. We
Yeah.
look forward to hearing you again, you know. One thing happened. I was doing Mountjoy once, and again, I had to do a good few different gigs to cover the prison. And before I left, I said to the prison officer, is there anybody I haven't sung to? And there was one little lad, and he was in a padded lock-up cell on his own down in the basement. And I said, well, can I go and sing to him? I said, we'll have to come in with you because he can be very violent. And I went in. Fuck. He had my songbook
Go ahead.
under his pillow. He died since.
God help us.
Fuck, that was amazing, that.
I know, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But like even in the depths of it, like he still hang on to that, you know?
Yeah.
Do you see how that happened? Like do you see what stands out for me is it because something popped into your head and you asked the question, who didn't I sing to?
Yeah.
You know? And you didn't know that there was this guy was down
Wonderful. I
there.
remember his name, but I won't mention it.
Yeah.
And God, it was amazing, you know. I walked into the cell and he said my name and he took the fucking songbook out from under his pillow. And that to me was
Powerful,
one of the
isn't
most
it?
powerful things ever happened to my life, you know.
But do you know what it shows as well? Like the power of music to reach people, even in a little padded cell in the basement of a prison, that he still had access to some of your songs, you know?
Yeah.
And he got a bit of comfort from that. And that's brilliant.
But listen, lads, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
great
you.
to come down and we'll meet again soon.
Yeah, not a bother. And thanks to Mick for bringing him down.
Thanks, Mick.
Yeah, see you later, lads. God bless.
Thanks, Chris.